Face, the final frontier. Throughout history, researchers from all disciplines have looked into human interaction from the ground up, literally, from how we walk, to how we talk, to how we power pose. As we've been able to narrow our focus within human interaction, people from various disciplines have looked into what features we find attractive from an evolutionary perspective. They've looked into how we remember faces and how we express emotion through our faces. But I wanted to look into something even further within the face, the way our perceptions of facial features go into affecting our social interaction. And this has been studied extensively already. A psychological phenomenon known as the halo effect explains why pretty people were treated better in high school. The halo effect basically says that people who are attractive are given the benefit of the doubt when it comes to other characteristics, such as intelligence or conscientiousness. People think that attractive people already have these traits, even if nothing has really been done to show that they possess these traits. And this is so pervasive that legislators in several states have actually set up protections for employees in the workplace. Being unattractive can actually cost you up to 9% of your salary, whereas being attractive can earn you a bonus of up to 6%. And that's without even factoring in the fact that being attractive makes you more likely to get the job in the first place. So it's clear that your face really has more than meets the eye, but it goes even farther than that. Bias exists regarding racially characteristic facial features as well. Researchers at Tufts University used these images to explore the relationship between status cues and the way we perceive faces. Using racially ambiguous faces, such as these two, which don't have any racially characteristic features, they wanted to explore how status cues, such as high or low class attire, can affect the way that people perceive faces. Participants were asked, when shown these faces, to categorize them as either black or white. Now, as I said earlier, they don't have any racially characteristic facial features, so they were going entirely based off status cues, and the results couldn't have been clearer. High class attire, a suit, would elicit a categorization of white, whereas low class attire, a janitorial outfit, would elicit an assignment of black. The researchers went one step further as well. They used mouse tracking software to see if there were any other implicit biases that weren't so on the surface. When shown an image like this, using that mouse tracking software, it was shown that participants went to click on white, but ultimately selected black. The same thing happened in reverse. When shown a white face with low-class attire, the participants went to select black and then ultimately selected white. This shows that there's a competition between these different biases, that you have a bunch of different input coming in, and you're not sure exactly which is the most important. And they all influence each other. But this research fell a bit short for me. While they looked into the way your status cues, such as the things that you're wearing, can affect how you perceive racially ambiguous features, they did not look into how racially characteristic features paired with skin color can affect these perceptions. For example, when shown an image like this, if the skin had been white, even though there are racially characteristic features, would there have been some sort of difference in the results? That's what I set out to find out. So I took these pictures of 6 white and 5 black models, and I manipulated them in Photoshop. Starting with the original photo, I would then create 2 versions of the photo. So this is the original photo. The first version I created was one with black characteristic features, which were determined by geneticists to include a wider nose and fuller lips. And then I created another version of the photo, which had white characteristic features, such as a narrow nose and less full lips. I know people like to look at these photos because they're a little weird to see, but I'll just leave that up for a sec. Now I did the same thing for each model from the side as well. So starting with a profile shot, I then manipulated it to have black characteristic features, which is a flat nose bridge and more protruding lips, and a white phenotypic features, which include a more narrow and defined nose bridge, as well as less protruding lips. Then I created 2 surveys. I put the photographs side by side, and I asked either, which face do you think is more attractive, or which person do you believe has a higher income? Now each survey had a different participant pool, and in each participant pool was around 130 Monroe Community College students from upstate New York, I collected demographic information based on their age, race, and gender, and then I scored them based on 22 on how many times they selected the white facial features as either being perceived as more attractive or being perceived as having a higher income. Now, the results were almost identical for both surveys. People selected the white facial features 3 times as frequently as the white facial features. And everything else was controlled for. It was the same model, same skin tone. The only thing that was different was these racially characteristic facial features. So it's clear that a bias exists here. There is a relationship between racially characteristic features and perceived income and attractiveness. What are some explanations for this? What could be the cause? I believe that it is an overrepresentation of white facial features in media. White facial features are just seen more. And that could affect a participant's choice. If they're only seeing white facial features and that's what they're being shown over and over is the most attractive option, then that will affect their choice. And also, in successful and popular women of color in the media, there is a tendency to favor white facial features. Now that you're looking for it, look at these photographs and imagine if any of them would look out of place if their skin was white. Beyonce, with a slender nose and not very protruding lips. Or Halle Berry, also with a slender nose and dainty lips. Supermodels like Tyra Banks not only have the slender nose, but they're also styled frequently in wigs and extensions that make them appear even whiter. And this led to an unexpected, very surprising result in my research. Although participants selected the white facial features overall for both races of models, they were far more likely to choose the white facial features for white models. And this shows that participants were much more comfortable seeing white features on a black model than black features on a white model. Again, I believe that this is a result of the overrepresentation of white facial features in media and the fact that there are many successful, beautiful, popular actresses, musicians of color that are not being very representative of the racially characteristic features within their ethnic group. So we've uncovered this bias, but what can we do? The first step is starting a conversation, having a paradigm shift. Once you can start to understand the way that you're perceiving facial features, it's much easier to change the way that you're seeing them. Movies like Black Panther that have a diverse cast of black people show diversity within a race versus between races, and it shows that black people do not need to look a certain way. There's a spectrum, just like for any race. Instead of the typical show, which has a majority white cast and a token minority, shows like Luke Cage show that there is diversity within an ethnic group. They can stay true to the community that they represent. But obviously we can't all make movies and create representation for ourselves out there in the media, so what can we do? Examining problematic trends in our current society, such as contouring trends, which really focus on minimizing or even eliminating certain ethnically characteristic features. Once you start to notice and recognize these things, it's a lot easier to scale back and recognize the societal influences that are, creating these beauty standards. Only when we start to see the true faces of America, only when we see beauty beyond color, will America really start to look prettier. Thank you very much.